Thank you very much, Professor Selander. It was really interesting to take part of your presentation and your lecture. One question that I'm curious about is the learning design sequences. Obviously, it offers us an opportunity to learn or to understand how we can look at learning, how it takes place from the informal to the formal. I wonder, does it also offer us a tool to understand how we can design learning, and should we include informal aspects of learning and formal aspects in a medical context?
I'm very glad for your question, because one important distinction we make is between designs for learning and designs in learning. And I've talked very much about designs in learning, what the student is doing. Taking from the teacher's point of view, I think there are at least the three main aspects I would like to enhance. One is what we could call the learning space, or the educational space, or the teaching space. How do we actually arrange the space for learning? And what do we mean by the space? Is it the physical space, or do we as well include the digital space? And if we include the digital space, is it a pro or a con that the student is on the internet Googling what I'm talking about? Is that something that supports the learning, or is it something that disturbs the learning? So we have lots of questions to ask ourselves. What do we mean by this formal situation? Where does it take place? Do we have to have lectures, classes, seminars? What can be done at other places? So what am I actually supposed to do as a teacher? Is it just to have talks? Or is it to take part in discussions? Should I always be online? That's stupid, of course. So but lots of those questions, what is the educational space, and what do I mean by that? The second one is the text. And how do I construct text? How do I offer texts for understanding? And how can I use this text in a wider sense also to provide learning step by step? How can I organize text in my own speeches? I have one very good example of a physician up in Umeå. He was in the X-ray. He was an X-ray specialist, and he had a course. And he asked a friend who was working in education, "You have to help me." And he said, "I'm not a physician, but just come and talk to me." And he came and asked two questions. Do you make your teaching organized and structured? Oh yes, I start with the history of the X-ray machine, and then I explain all the parts, and from the student's point of view. Well, he said, I make a try. So next lecture, he came into the room, he handed out an orange for everyone. And he said, "You have an orange, and here's a machine. See what you can do with the machine to scrutinize this orange. Investigate it. And then, can you eat it?" And he said, "Good luck," and went away. And the students were totally furious. He wants us to do everything ourselves. After a while, he got the best marks instead of the worst ones. So he actually changed the order of giving information and discussing things from the student's point of view, not from his own point of view. So I think that's one part. And that leads us to the third question. How do we use learning sequences? How do we organize step by step these possible learnings? Because there are lots of different ways of learning and understanding. But it leads us to it's about activities. I do communication in the purpose for these students to learn. And doing that, I have to understand as well, trying to make the three questions to one. What are the learning, I don't know if I should call it habit, but in what ways do individuals learn? Some learn by text. I love text myself, long text. I have colleagues who they want points. 5 points, not 5 pages. That's one difference. We call it knowledge styles. Another one is text pictorial illustrations. So we have lots of resources, and we have to understand that there are different ways of using these resources, and it's the way the resources are used is not wrong or right. It's good or bad in terms of learning styles and learning interests and habits and traditions and whatever. So make that more open for your own reflection as a teacher. Then I could add my last point, of course. How do I assess this? Just to give you one example, if in Swedish schools there is a computer rain, everyone is going to have his or her own laptop. So they are used to work now with the laptops. And then they are assessed by paper and pen. What do we do then? Do we accurately measure or represent or mirror their learning when they use totally different tools? So if we use one kind of tool in the learning process, that should be used in the assessment process as well. So trying to use this model is also trying to understand what are the conditions and framings and purposes and curriculum. What kind of settings can I actually construct here? What kind of transformative processes can I facilitate? How do I support it with formative assessment? What kind of representations do I expect? And how do we evaluate it? And how can I make all this clear from the beginning for the student? So I think it's a support also for the teacher to orchestrate all these different aspects of teaching and learning and make it more coherent and, of course, understandable.
Sounds like a challenge.
It is a challenge. It's easy to talk about.
Thank you very much.